Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the first Pueblo City County Library District Genealogy Virtual Class presented by the Local History and Genealogy Department. I will be discussing genealogical research with a focus on Pueblo County, Colorado. For this class, we will not be going over DNA tests, but we will cover this topic at a later class. After this class, a survey will be emailed to you. All right, let's get started. So today's agenda, I will go over the basics of genealogy, including how to prepare for your research, what information you should look for, and in this context, I will go over Pueblo County's history and Colorado history that would have had an effect on your ancestors. I will conclude with the resources available in Pueblo, including at our library and online. So let's see. I would like to begin with a land acknowledgement. I would like to thank the first people who called Colorado home. They were from the Apache Nation, the Arapaho Nation, Cheyenne Nation, Pueblo tribes, Shoshone tribes, and the Ute Nation, who are just among the federally recognized tribes who have settled and traveled through Colorado. The Mountain Ute and the Southern Ute are the only nations to have reservations in Colorado. And we know all this from the Folsom campsites, cliff dwellings, and rock art sites found across Colorado that date back over 13,000 years. If you believe you have Native American ancestry, I recommend you do some genealogy research first, identify which tribe or which time period and area your Native American ancestor may have become a part of your family, and then check that tribe's website or contact the tribal office and inquire how you can move forward to determine relations. I'll be hosting a class centered on Native American genealogy in the future if you are interested. So what is genealogy? Genealogy is a study or record of the descent of a person, family, or group, also the study of ancestral lines. Family history is a record of ancestors with more than just basic information. There are details about the ancestor as a person. And the genealogy proof standard is the guideline for establishing the reliability of a genealogical conclusion with certainty. And it's also important to know how a librarian can help you. We can get you information, teach you how to find and document the information that you seek, answer questions, and recommend books and websites to help you with your research. But keep in mind that a librarian will not do all of the work for you. We will help you and apply the genealogy proof standard. And if you're finding recording data that is accurate and reliable, the proof will back up your conclusions and ensuring that you are not going along with rumors or unreliable sources. This will provide support for your family tree and conclusions when you present your information to your family, friends, and clients. So, timeline. I will just be going over modern history of Pueblo County, which has the unique history of being under French and Spanish rule. The area was not fully settled, but in 1842, several American, French, and Spanish frontiersmen and fur traders built the trading post of Pueblo. Fort Pueblo was abandoned in 1854 after an attack killed most of the residents, and the area was left alone for several years. By 1848, the area was part of northern Mexico when the Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo was signed, and it now became part of the United States. The American government did not know what to do with Colorado at first, and plans were made to make it part of surrounding territories. But everything changed when the gold rush began in 1858. So many people moved into the area that many abandoned towns, forts, and trading posts were revived, including Pueblo. In your family history, pay attention to these dates as it would influence timelines and be the cause of family decisions to move. Colorado was recognized as its own American territory in 1861, just in time for the Civil War. You will find both Union regiments and Confederate militias in these few years, with many veterans taking advantage of the Homestead Act after the war. In 1876, Colorado became a state 100 years after the signing of the Declaration of Independence, which is why we are called the Centennial State. During this time, El Pueblo was revived and 3 smaller boom towns were founded near it. As businesses and opportunities allowed for much growth, these towns spread onto each other's city limits. The town of South Pueblo was incorporated in 1873, Central Pueblo was incorporated in 1882, and Bessemer was incorporated in 1886. They legally consolidated as the city of Pueblo between March 9th and April 6, 1886, with Bessemer joining Pueblo in 1894. And you will find these portions of Pueblo, including neighborhoods, businesses, and school districts, have kept these names to this day. The county of Pueblo was rich with opportunities in agriculture, mining, and steel mill labor. Unfortunately, most of this work was dangerous, and with so many jobs available, it was easy to replace someone, which led to strikes in the steel mills and the mines. From 1880 to 1930, there were occasional strikes at individual mills and mines, with the largest ones affecting Pueblo in 1903 and 1914. Workers wanted safer working conditions, less work hours, and higher pay. Your ancestor may have arrived to work in a mill or mine, but left or changed occupations during these years. It may have also affected where they lived, if you're interested in their addresses. Steel mill workers live near the mills and smelters. There are many older maps available where you can find the lots that your ancestors worked on and can trace their route to work. The Great Pueblo Flood in 1921 had a great effect on Pueblo when constant torrential rains and melted snowfall caused the Arkansas River to rise almost 25 feet, flooding the entire area, including downtown Pueblo, which recorded more than 13 feet on Main Street. Up to 250 people were killed, and it remains the worst disaster in Pueblo's history. One measure they took to help ensure a similar flood would not happen again was the river channel was rerouted through a larger channel that diverted the Arkansas River away from downtown Pueblo. You can see the change in this map. The original course of the river is highlighted in red, and its present-day course is highlighted in blue, where it says levee on the map. If you are looking for addresses or want to see the present-day location of your ancestor's address, this may have affected the location. Another change caused by the flood involves the nearby town of Swallows. It was hit hard by the flood, leading to people having to move away and start over, and Swallows is no longer considered a town, just a populated area. The flood is a reason why so many people had to be institutionalized later in life. So if a family member disappears from records, I recommend looking at the Colorado Mental Health Institute's records and library. Your ancestor might be there. You can find more information on the flood in our library and online digital archives. Okay, so now what? You have a general history of Pueblo County. What do? You will need to prepare yourself for the research ahead. First, ask yourself, what kind of information do you want? Do you want to collect names and just have a record of names and dates, or do you want to know your family history with details that tell a story? What are you fine with knowing and not knowing? Then ask yourself, what do you already know and where to begin? Names, dates, and places is a great way to start. Full names include first, middle, last names, nicknames, aliases, maiden names. Do you know the names of non-family members, such as neighbors? Do you know their addresses, their location? Do you know the name of your ancestor's employer or their occupation? These details will come up and they can help you narrow your search. Whom do you ask in your family? Start with the elderly members of your family, especially parents and grandparents. Perhaps you have a history buff in your family or a family gossip. I have found that the biggest gossipers are great at family details. If you do not know what to ask, stick with names, dates, and places. Once you begin your research with just this information, you will soon learn what additional information you will need. As you work, have patience. You will not find everything at once. Finding this information on websites will take time, and you will not find everything in one day at a library. Please be patient. And what do you do if you come across a phrase or word you are not familiar with? Jot the offending word down and find a glossary that can help you. You will find spellings and abbreviations that you will not recognize, and that can be frustrating. but keep a list of terms handy. I've included a link to my list that I personally like from Family Search, but dictionaries are also available as books and other websites like Ancestry. So now that you have your names, dates, and places, how do you organize this information? First, know the different kinds of charts available to you and can also be a reference if you decide to make your own charts. Family history and pedigree charts are the most common. I have included samples of free charts available on the National Genealogical Society website. They are free to download, and you can fill them out on your computer or you can print them. And you can print them at your local library. You can find these charts on other websites like Ancestry, Family Search, etc., but my preference are these two. The family history chart in the middle includes extended families, names, dates, and places with extra space for details. The pedigree chart at the top is just for listing names, dates, and places. These charts are not mandatory, they are just recommendations. You can record your information in the manner that works best for you. I have a friend who uses different color ink with certain people, and she always puts maiden names in all capital letters. To create a family tree online, as with the bottom image, this is from Ancestry's offering to members. On Ancestry, type Build a Tree or look for a Build a Tree tab. It will take you to the correct web page. You can also see public member trees, public member photos, and scanned documents. There are also many suggested pages for family tree information and how to make one, and tutorials on YouTube. If you do not use Ancestry, this is also available in Family Search. Just type in Make a Family Tree. And if you want to make a tree on your own computer without using Family Search or Ancestry, there are free software programs like Gramps. And you can even create one on an Excel spreadsheet. I'll be hosting a class to focus on organization in the future. The way you want to record your information is entirely up to you and makes you comfortable. If you prefer pen and paper or create one online, that is fine. This is your research. On the right are recommendations on how to record the information. These suggestions fall under the Genealogy Proof Standards recommendations and is the basis on how most, if not all, genealogy sites like Ancestry offer and present their information. I know in Ancestry and Family Search, they offer copy citation options that will make it easier for you to record. These charts and examples of how to record and cite information is available online and in genealogy books and manuals. Okay, so you're ready and you know how to jot down information, begin your research. Where is the information? So let's go over records. You always begin with records. Records are official documents from government, corporate, civil, or religious institutions that contain specific pieces of information. There are so many records, it is easy to feel overwhelmed. I have included the kinds of records you will find in Colorado. Vital records are the backbone of research and a great place to begin. Vital records include birth, marriage, divorces, and death certificates, which can be found in both lists and certificates. Like I've included this marriage certificate. They will list family members, correct spellings of names and dates, or incorrect spellings, and some records include additional details, like death certificates include maiden names. Even if a relative lived off the grid or in the mountains away from town, they would still have a vital record at some point. It is common to find birth records and death records that list the person dying or being born days or months prior to the date of the record. For homesteads and prospecting or purchasing a house, there has to be a record. Federal records include border crossings, which pertains to people traveling back and forth between New Mexico and Mexico, either as immigrants or people just seeking work or visiting families. You can find border crossing records on Ancestry and on most online databases. Immigration records can include paperwork being filed at most ports of entries, medical records, and records from the place of origin, which may or may not be in Ancestry or an online database. You may have to go through that country's government for this paperwork, such as Mexican records. You will find military records, such as enlistment forms, pensions, and listing of cemeteries and graves for the Civil War for both Union Confederate soldiers and the Mexican-American War. Now the census. The census, error. Sorry about that. One of the most important records for your research is the census. The U.S. Census is taken every 10 years and the full records released every 72 years. It is the best document to start with because they include so much information. The census includes 1790 to the present, but only up to 1950 is available. Some years they make changes. For example, only the name of the head of the household was recorded in the first 6 censuses. Census information is free to the public and can be found online at census.gov, online databases like Family Search, and at your local library. Some states held their own census, of which Colorado had its own census conducted in 1885, which is available online and in our library. Right. So another great area to look at is newspapers. The first newspaper in Colorado was the Rocky Mountain News, debuting in 1859. More locally owned newspapers sprang up over the years, including Pueblo, with newspapers in French and Spanish. The 2 largest newspapers are the Pueblo Star-Journal and the Pueblo Chieftain. Newspapers were a good way to communicate long distances in some area, and they're also, in some areas, the only way to communicate. What you will find in these historic newspapers are advertisements, including calls for workers or ads about your ancestors' services, and want ads. There would also be advertisements for property, plots, and homestead plots available after 1862. There are full-page sheets full of these numbers that can be found online, and databases that offer digitized newspapers. Births were not always printed in the 1880s. They were treated as space fillers, but deaths were always recorded. Court cases and crimes were on the front page, as seen in the bottom right, with columns detailing what an individual judge presided over and sentenced. And in these newspapers, they also listed the names of the jurors. So that is a good way to find your ancestor. Declarations of intent were quite common. In the bottom right is an example. A person would have to go to the local land office and declare with witnesses they want a specific lot from the listing of available homestead lots. They had to be at least 21, head of household, an American citizen, and then prove the property within 5 years. You may find several declarations over months or years by the same person. They could either be adding more property to their lot, or they were denied the first time and are trying to get that lot again. Divorces were also treated as space fillers, but there is a Colorado Divorce, Birth, and Marriage Index available online and in your library. Sometimes a newspaper would welcome a family or business person who just moved to Pueblo, and many different dealings with property would be listed, and visits would sometimes be announced, like the article in the top right details a child's birthday party in the 1920s with the listing of her friends' names and their mothers. One interesting crime that was published was the failure to pay taxes and vote. The excerpt in the top left is an example of a list of men who did not vote in an election. They were advertising their names, addresses, and precinct as a way to encourage them to vote. There are entire pages of newspapers dedicated to this crime. As you can see, this is a good way to find ancestors' location at the time. And some of these homes were so new they did not have an address yet. They were just listed by lot. And that makes them easier to find on a map. So, other information. Other areas of information include church records, especially for those of New Mexican and Spanish ancestry. You'll find a lot of great information from Catholic Church records, baptisms, marriages, first communions, burials. City directories are an understated source of information. They will not only share addresses, but also the occupation of your ancestor, name of employer, marital status, and student status. And what they also do not say is helpful. A person's name can appear for years and then stop. It can indicate this person moved away, got married, or passed away. There is also a listing of streets and which directions they go and intersect, and it's also a fun primary source with advertisement listings. You can learn so much from a state directory. Social organizations and unions tend to have great records. They list names of members, meeting minutes, social events, elections, and can show what was the news and concerns of that day. Sometimes meeting minutes and information will be published in a newspaper. Not always. You can find divorce indexes online and in archives like ours. Employment records are very good, especially if your ancestor was a steel worker. Many steel mills' employment records are online, but not everything. If you want to learn more about your ancestor's work history, go to the employer. You'll be surprised what you can find. Libraries and archives like ours can sometimes have oral histories that will allow you to hear your ancestor's voice and learn more details about their lives and their friends. There are hundreds of passenger lists available online and in books, and if you need assistance, I can help you navigate. State fair records include vendors, performers, cowboys, and farmers. If your ancestor was a farmer or cowboy, there's a high chance they're involved in at least one state fair. You can find information and images for your research. Social organizations like the Daughters of the Revolution, United Farm Workers Movement are good possibilities, and so are union records. Many unions published information about meetings and causes for concern in local newspapers and newsletters. Like the United Mine Workers of America, they had newsletters and their wives would participate and even publish recipe books. My favorite source of information are yearbooks. Yearbooks have photos that you might have never seen before and information about your ancestor that shows them in a different light. Some yearbooks are online, but you can always find them in your local library. The best part of yearbooks in our archives is that many have writing and messages written by fellow students that can add fun details to your research. So I'm going to present a listing of resources that are in Pueblo, Colorado, mostly historical genealogical societies and institutions with archives. So the Colorado Society of Hispanic Genealogy, Fray Angelico Chavez chapter, is a great source of information, especially if your ancestors originate from Spain or Mexico. They are a regional organization, and this chapter focuses on Pueblo and southeastern Colorado. They meet every second Saturday of the month at the Pueblo Heritage Summer. The Pueblo County Historical Society is also another great resource. They always have volunteers there, and they know everything like the back of their hand. They will get back to you very quickly if you send them a question. There is also the Beulah, Colorado Historical Society. It has a very nice website available online. The Bessemer Area Historical Society has this link, but they are also part of the Steelworks Museum, since most steelworkers lived in the Bessemer area. And then there's the Southeastern Colorado Genealogical Society, has information on San Luis Valley, Trinidad, and Pueblo. And yes, many people traveled back and forth between Pueblo and Trinidad, so it's a good chance that this society will have information for you. I'll leave that up a few minutes. There we go. If you want to have more information about any societies, just send me an email and I can send you contact information. Okay, Colorado Archival Resources. So archives can be found in churches, City Hall, the Colorado Mental Health Institute Museum, County Clerk's Office, El Pueblo Heritage Museum, and History Colorado, and the Steelworks Museum. They all have their own archives that can have information that can only be found there, and they are happy to help. And libraries. Adams State University Library is in the San Luis Valley, but just like the Southeastern Colorado Society, they have a lot of information that pertains to the state and also Pueblo. Colorado State University Pueblo Library has a large archives, and their Chicano movement archives is very impressive. They have something on everything. The family history libraries are presented by the Church of Latter-day Saints and Family Search. There are 3 in the county, and 1 is dedicated to Pueblo. Their hours may have changed due to COVID. but you can reach out to the church or you can email me and I can help you. Of course, the Pueblo City County Library District with our collections and archives. We have 25,620 books, manuscripts, microfiche, and more available in our collection, including vital records and many documents from Colorado and New Mexico. Our Ancestry Library Edition was searched more than 35,000 times last year. If we do not have something, then we can at least point you in the right direction. And of course, Pueblo Community College Library is also a great resource on history. And the region, they're very impressive. Okay, online resources and databases. These are all, well, mostly all listed on our website, and if they're not listed, they will be going to be listed soon. As you know, Ancestry.com, there's also Colorado Historic Newspapers, which has newspapers from the 1860s all the way to the present listed. The Colorado State Archives, Family Search, Find My Past, Fold 3, Heritage Quest, and the Library of Congress also has very impressive collection that includes a lot of maps. There's a MyHeritage Library Edition, and of course, these can be accessed on our website. And of course, there is our archives department, special collections, now called Local History and Genealogy. And of course, the U.S. National Archives, where a lot of federal records like the census will be listed. Okay, so this is an offering of what we have. And of course, we're a library, we have books, we have census records, family histories that some people have typed up themselves and left them in our collection. We have interlibrary loan in case we do not have a book you're looking for. There are land records, maps, military records, naturalization records, newspapers in Spanish and Italian and French, oral histories, periodicals, newsletters, and magazines bound both in English and Spanish, photographs. I can offer referrals if we don't have the information, and of course, vital records in English and Spanish. There is our library, and there is our address and my email address and our phone number. So more information about our library district. Does anyone have any questions? And if you think of questions later, you're welcome to email me or call us. And these are the hours that we are open. The third floor is currently under renovation right now, so part of our collection is not available, but we do have a room on the first floor. And if there's something that we don't have or we cannot get it at the moment, then I could at least point you in the right direction. So I thank you for spending time with us, and I hope to see you again at another class. You're all welcome to email me. Thank you.